Okay, so the rest of the parts for this build aren't showing up for like another week because I haven't ordered them yet because money and stuff like that. But I'm desperate to check out this case. It's already been delivered, and I'm like, I cannot leave this thing boxed up for another week. I can't do it. So I'm going to open it now. This is a cold opening. We haven't rolled the intro yet. We're having a look. I've got to see it. It's my new NZXT H500i in matte black. Which way is up? Can't tell. Right, that's the bottom. Oh, look at it. It's beautiful. There's cellophane on the tempered glass, but I can't bring myself to take that off right now. So yeah, NZXT H500i. Hello interwebs, welcome to Let's Build Computers. Today we are taking a look at the NZXT H500i. So this is one of their new flagship cases, the new H series, which is shares the same series name as the old H440, but completely different cases. H440 and the old Mantis, I think it was, night and day different. This is a whole new generation of cases, just with the same letter at the start of it. So the H500 is one of the newest members of this family. We have looked at the H200i recently, and this is kind of similar to that, but it's got some new different features to it that have come in as a sort of second generation bump to it. So let's take a look around this case and see what's new. So first of all, obligatory tempered glass, which obviously I'm not going to mock. I love tempered glass, as I've said before on this channel. It is my jam. And if you don't know why it's my jam, the reason for that is that you get the clearest possible window on your case with tempered glass. There's no weird shimmers, there's no blurs. You get a really crystal clear window into the case. And the other thing as well is tempered glass, really tough stuff. This will not scratch unless you really start scouring it and trying to damage it. And even then, tempered glass is still pretty darn tough. Most common case windows, such as you get, plastic side panels, they will scratch under your fingernails. They're really easy to damage, which is my biggest beef with a lot of cases. However, tempered glass, really good. It's going to look just as good as this time in 10 years. So really good stuff. Don't worry, I will be taking that label off at some point. So now here comes the first party trick of the H500i that made me really attracted toward this case. Most of the time with tempered glass side panel cases, one of the things that I don't like about them is that the side panel usually has 4 thumb screws in the corners, which make them kind of a pain in the backside to get into. It's the main reason why I don't have a tempered glass case as my shop workstation. I've got a Corsair 400C that has a plastic but swiveling side panel, so really easy access. However, this one's got a very neat feature. We've got this thumb screw at the top here, and we undo that, and then this side panel just comes off and it swivels out like that and then lifts out. So we've got this really nice quick release, easy access action on the case, which I love the design of. It's not perfect. You'll notice as I took it out just then that we've got sort of 2 notches. We've got these 2 guys here. Oh, hold on a second, let me get that in camera. We've got these 2 guys here and here, which go into these corresponding holes. But the problem is that because you only have a handle, so to speak, at one end, when I go to open this side panel, I can pull that bit out, but I can't do anything there, and it feels a bit janky to remove. It's supposed to be easy, but it's kind of awkward. And I feel like what they should have done was just put a very slight slide mechanism, literally just a slide of metal that goes across. So when you undo this thumb screw, you just pull that back slightly and it falls out, if you see what I mean. I think that would have been a better design that still would have been very easy to implement, that doesn't involve any springs or anything like that. So it's good, not perfect. These may loosen up over time, who knows? But however, I do prefer it to having the thumb screws in the corners, so that's great. So let's put this guy to one side. Okay, so looking around inside the case, this is an ATX case, so it takes a full-size ATX motherboard, and it's fairly compact for an ATX case as well. I mean, this is about the same size as my 400C, which is also a compact case. This is very comparable to the NZXT S340, actually, because for a long time, when I built my new computer, I was going to get an S340 Elite, but then this guy has come along, and as far as I'm concerned, is basically a better version of the S340 Elite. It's a newer design and it's more or less the same size. And this is pretty much as small as you can go with an ATX motherboard without making some kind of compromises somewhere. It's only fractionally bigger than a lot of micro ATX cases. And the H500i, which is NZXT's micro ATX case from this series, is only about 30mm shorter. It's 3 centimeters shorter, so it's about sort of that tall or so. So with this case, you're making it ever so slightly taller, but bam, you've got ATX, you can put in whatever the hell you want. So the size is really good. It's a fairly wide case, and we'll get to that. If I just spin that around so you can see the back of it, as you can see, there's the width of our power supply to there, and we've got the PCI brackets there, and we also have these vertical ones here, which again I'll tell you more about in a minute. So it's a fairly reasonably wide case, but not to a problematic amount. So long as you're not sliding your tower into a narrow cupboard or anything like that, it's not going to be a problem. It's not obnoxiously wide. It's not like a Q case or anything like that. It's just slightly wider than average. Right, so starting at the top back of the case, we've got 120mm fan mount there, pretty standard. It doesn't have any rails, so it doesn't move up and down. However, based on the rest of the design, as you can see, it's fairly open. The back of this case is very flat. There's no bits sticking out anywhere, so you don't really need any rails. Normally, when you have when you have sliding rails at the back, it's to help your fan clear certain bits of the case and that kind of thing. It's not really a big deal here because of this case's additional width. You can kind of fit everything in without having to slide it about, so that's no problem there. So up the top here, we have another 120mm fan that comes as standard, and this particular mount point will also take a 140mm fan. So if we tip that over, you can see there we've got the 140mm rails there as well. So that is also available. No, you can't put your big radiator up the top here, despite the fact that there would actually be room for it. They've obviously just sacrificed that. However, this case is heavily designed for a front mount radiator system, which we'll get to in a moment, so not fussed about that. Unfortunately, although this vent does have a dust filter on it, the dust filter is held in place by the fan, which is kind of an annoying design because it means that if you don't want to put a fan up the top, it's very difficult to leave that dust filter there. And with the dust filter removed, you kind of get left with this empty hole at the top of the case. So that's not ideal. I'm going to be looking to see if I can do anything about that, because at the moment I'm probably not going to be running the top fan, just to reduce the number of fans in the case. So let's take a look around the rest of the inside. We've got the signature NZXT strip down here that they've had in for their cases for a lot. Unlike the other H series cases, we actually have a solid enclosure here, whereas normally the window comes all the way to the bottom. So you don't get to see the bottom of the strip, which is less nice, but you've still got that nice NZXT strip. This is removable as well, which hides all the cables, and then in various other colors of the case, this guy will be your accent color as well. So if you buy this case in, for example, black and red, this guy will all be red and everything. I opted for the matte black because I want to do all of my color work in this case with the lighting, which we'll get to in the build log for this computer, and also just in other videos. So we've got two 2.5mm mounts down the bottom here. What's the deal with these? Do these just snap in? I think they do. Yeah, so these are just some snap-in jobs. What's going on with those? It's a fairly... Oh, I see. So these bits here, that squeezes in, which is how you mount and dismount it. And the nice thing about that is that because of the dotted design on the bottom of the case here, you can kind of move these around slightly. So you can put them very close together, or you can move them to one side, and that actually gives you quite a lot of flexibility. You can adjust the position of them, and I really like that idea. And the other thing that's nice about this as well is that, again, unlike the older NZXT cases, once you remove these, there's no rails left behind. And like, for example, for me, I won't be having any 2.5-inch devices on show here. I'll have a 2.5-inch hard drive buried down the back. But other than that, I'll be removing these. So I can remove these from the case. There we go, like that. And now I just have a nice clean bottom of the case with no rails left over and no holes where these things are supposed to go. So that's a nice design. That's nice and intelligent. I like it. Now, when we move around to the front of the case, things start getting a little bit more weird. So unlike pretty much any other case, the front panel of this case is not actually removable. So this nice clean front look with the matte finish, this is a single sheet of metal up and over the top. It's folded across. There's no splits here. There's no gaps. And that makes it look amazing, but obviously it means that this is not removable. So in order to get to the front, we have this removable panel here. So those are too tight. I'm going to need a screwdriver. So in order to mount our front fans or our front mount radiator, this guy comes out. There we go. So I can remove this bracket here, and I can mount up to a 280mm radiator on that. And once I've mounted it all in place, that then just slots in to the front again. So this is, it's a little bit unorthodox. However, and initially I was a bit like, ooh, I'm not sure about that. I wasn't expecting this. But the more I've looked into it, the more I'm like, that's actually kind of a good idea, because it actually makes maintenance of your radiator much easier, because as long as you've got a bit of slack on your hose pipes, you can actually remove the radiator to get better access to the front for dusting and maintenance and things like that. And likewise, in order to clean up the other areas, if we remove the back panel of the case, which again, look at, these gaps are really nice. These are deliberate gaps. The folding on the metal is really nice. It's been designed to look nice. So let's just take this guy off. So our front filtering consists of the off-side panel, which has this full-length vent down the side, and that is filtered with a removable filter that comes out from the top there. So you need to get your fingernails or a screwdriver into that bit, and it does lever out. It's quite difficult, so I'm not going to do it now, but I have tested that, and this guy does come out. And then in addition to that, there's also another vent, which is viewable down the bottom here, there. So that guy there, and this guy also just comes out like so. And then there's your other front vent. So really nice and easy access to clean the dust filters. And for the little bit of dust that always creeps into the computer via various means, that removable front bracket does make it nice and easy to just gain access to the radiator and just give the fans a brush down with a paintbrush or something like that. So very interesting design for this that I quite like a lot. I really like the way this case has come together. It gives you sort of all the advantages of that enclosed box without having the awkwardness of how ventilation is going to get to it. So yeah, great overall. Right, let's get on to the toys now. So if we spin it around to the back, as you can see, we've got quite a lot going on around here. So let's just move those out the way for a moment. Down the bottom here, we've got a box of tricks that comes in here. You've got your extra screws. We've got a manual for the case that shows you all the features, including the electronics that we'll get to in a moment. And then we also have some zip ties and things like that in there. So that is in a dual 3.5mm cage there, so you can mount 2 hard drives natively to the bottom there. And there are also rails on top of that cage. We just tilt back slightly there. These tabs here, there are tabs on top of that cage, so you can actually fit an additional drive on top of that as well. So you can actually natively cram 3 drives into there, no problem at all, with no modification. So this thing actually has 3 3.5-inch bays in it, which is quite a lot for a modern case of this style. However, by trade-off, there's no 2.5-inch bays on the back here. Although that much being said, I'm looking at those holes and I'm wondering, do these things move around there? I think they might. Let's just see if this works. Yeah, look at that. That's swish, isn't it? So I can actually put those around the back. And that also means that I don't have to keep them safe anywhere. I like that. There we go. So you can mount your SSDs on the back there as well if you want to, which I'm not a fan of, but if you like to do that, you can. So that's pretty cool. As you can see, we've got these really nice grooved cable tidies. We've got this one here for the ATX power line, USB 3, that kind of thing. We've also got this one coming up the back and over the top. So you can run fan cables, you can run your CPU power cable up here, all that kind of thing. And then you can zip tie all of your cables into those channels and have really nice cable pawn levels of tidiness. And that's something that I'm hoping to do in this build. So a lot of this stuff is pre-plumbed with the fans that come as standard as well, which is a nice thing about NZXT. A lot of cases when they come with fans, you just have the cables flapping about in the breeze in there. NZXT, they actually come pre-plumbed, as you can see, with the fans all in place. And if you're new to building computers, this is really helpful to get you started. So big fan of that. Now, party piece of the case, this is the NZXT Smart device. So what this guy is, this is a Dire Hue Plus controller. So it is a fan controller and an LED controller in a single box. So it does very exotic fan control. And if you want to know more about what this can do, to be honest, I suggest you go and watch my H500i video for more details on this guy. The long and the short of it is, it's a very good PWM fan controller that can also do automatic fan profiling. It actually has a built-in microphone, so you can tell it to calibrate and it will listen to the noise of the computer and adjust different fan speeds to suit. And it's okay. It works, however, anyone who, it's not very difficult to create a custom fan curve that can beat it. To be honest, if you just set your fans to a default silent curve, they will probably match what this thing can achieve. So it's okay. It works, it's just a bit unnecessary. It's a bit extra, to be honest. However, it does also have the built-in LED controller, which can control either 2 LED strips or actually I think 2 or 3 LED strips daisy chained together, or it can control a couple of the NZXT RGB fans. Now, officially, it cannot do both at the same time, but I'm actually going to be exploring to find out if there is a bodge way around that, because I have an RGB fan and I'm going to try and see if I can bodge it into an LED strip chain and see what happens. So this case does also have 2 LED strips in it. You can see one here coming up the back of the strip, so the entire strip will be illuminated. And then the other guy is right up the top here, along the top there, you can see. So 2 well-positioned LED strips, which are both hidden from view when the computer is running. And that's important because you don't want your LED strips to be visible because they look horrid when you can see the source of the light. You just want to see the cast light. So yeah, and again, that is all pre-plumbed in as standard. And unlike the older ones, this is all powered from a SATA power connector that we've got down there as well. So they've finally gotten rid of that Molex rubbish, which NZXT kept using for far too long. One thing you do need to bear in mind when you're using a case like this as well, though, is if you're using this guy and you're using a modern water cooler, which I will be, I've got a Kraken X52 over there, and if you then have more or less any other USB type device in here as well, you may find that you need multiple USB 2 headers. So notice that we'll have quite a couple of those hanging out of this thing. So watch out for that when you're picking your motherboard. So finally, front headers up on the top here, microphone headphones, dual USB 3, which are in the nice NZXT purple color. And they're okay. I seem to remember the H200's ones looked slightly nicer than that, but I'm not torn up over it. Bit of a rattly button, which NZXT have always had a slight issue with. The Fantex power button is immaculate. Fantex P400, the power button on that is solid. It feels spectacular, it looks spectacular. This guy, still a bit of a cheap plastic vandal-proof switch, but not torn up over it. However, no reset button. NZXT still refused to put a reset button on the computer, which kind of annoys me. I know you don't need it very often, but when you do need it, it's really nice just to go boop on the reset button instead of having to hold down the power button for 10 seconds. And just put a reset button on it, please. You know, just do it. You know, it doesn't cost anything. Hard drive light is there as well. So And so coming back around to the back again, so I mentioned that we've got these two vertical PCI slots. So these are here very deliberately. One of the big headline features of this case is that because these guys are here, you can actually vertically mount your graphics cards. So if I grab a graphics card, you can actually mount up your graphics card there and have it all on show. Because obviously a lot of people, they've got big fancy graphics cards, but because you only ever see the back of them, you never really see much of the card itself. Whereas this one, you can have that big, huge air cooler all on show. Or if you've got a fancy water cooling block on your graphics card, it's going to look immense. It's going to look amazing. My only slight concern about this is that because this thing hangs out in front of the other PCI brackets, it kind of puts your graphics card right out at the front, which I think might look a little bit weird. But I'm going to demonstrate the graphics card in both positions later on in this video so you guys can have a look and judge for yourself. It is pretty smart placement, to be honest, because you can front mount your graphics card and still have space to put in other PCI graphics cards. Whereas usually in any case where you've botched it to do a vertical mount graphics card, you usually sacrifice all your other PCI expansions in order to do so. But on this one, you can have your graphics card sitting there and still have a sound card, a capture card, a Wi-Fi card, or whatever else you might want in there mounted behind the graphics card. So really interesting design. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how it looks. I don't think I'm going to be doing it myself, but I will be testing it out. Cool. Right, I think that covers the front of it. So let's do a build in this thing. Let's build it up. We'll reassemble it and we'll see how it looks when it's all done and finished. Here's a trial fit of the graphics card mounted vertically in the case. This card is not connected at the moment because something that I hadn't considered when I was looking into this case was it doesn't actually come with any kind of PCI Express riser cable. So if you're going to vertical mount your graphics card, you will need to buy a riser cable for it. So keep that in mind when you're speccing up. I'm not planning on buying any such riser cable. It's a neat idea, it's a novel idea, but I'm not a huge fan, to be honest. The main reason for this is that A, it puts the cooling fans are right up against the glass, and that's going to severely restrict the airflow around those cooling fans, and that will have an impact on their ability as well. If you place a solid object in front of fans like that, it will drastically impede their airflow. So that means your graphics card is going to run hotter. Unless, of course, you run it with the side panel off, but nah, whatever. And the other thing as well is, like, if you come around to other angles, you can start seeing that we have this big void down the back there, and it's just kind of floating out in the middle of nowhere. And I guess if you had lots of other cards behind it, it might look right, but I don't know, it just doesn't sit right hanging out all the way in front like that to me. If it was possible to mount it like central in the case as a centerpiece, that would work for me. I can understand why they put it out there, but yeah, I don't feel it personally. It's a neat idea though. It's a cool idea, but not one that I'm actually going to use. And the other issue with the vertical mounted graphics card is the entire card here is fully supported just from its back plate. So where it goes on to this double PCI back slot, that's the full support. The whole graphics card is hanging off of that. And I'm not fond of that concept at all. I think that's a horrendous idea personally. Graphics cards are not designed to hang from that back plate. I guess they probably can. And you know, when it's vertical, obviously it's not. When it's laying flat like this, that's really bad. When it's vertical, it's not quite so problematic. But I don't know. I'm not comfortable with that long term. I don't really want my graphics card hanging that way. So that's the other reason why I'm going to opt to my answer's gonna be no to that. However, you know, you've seen it, that's what it is. If that is your cup of tea, then go for it. So here's our completed build, and the case was fantastic to build in, quite frankly. There were a couple of teething issues with kind of the same deal that I found when I was working with the H500i, which is some of the cable tidying channels around the back just don't feel particularly useful in real life situations. Like, I look at the design of them and I think that's a really great design, that looks like a fantastic idea. But when I actually come to routing my cables, I find that none of them just seem to line up with where those need to go. So I didn't quite get the cable tidy pawn around the back that I really wanted. But that doesn't ruin it for me, because as you can see from the front, it looks drop dead gorgeous, and the way that you can reconfigure certain areas of the case are amazing, and just the way it all sits when it's finished are amazing. And the extra LED strip behind that NZXT feature strip to the right hand side, it really sets the case off fantastically. I thought that was a bit of a waste of space for an LED lighting strip, but the backlighting looks spectacular. And when you combine it with a load of other components that light up like I've done here, it really just looks amazing. So very happy with this case. The price of the case is also quite impressive. These have come down a lot. On the release of the new H series, I thought they were just too expensive. But now, you know, this one cost me, I think it was about £110, something like that. And considering the lighting that you get with it, that is quite frankly a bargain. And you can also buy it without the lighting if you want and pick it up for maybe like £75. And for a premium case of this kind of quality, I think that's stunning value for money. So this is definitely my go-to case for when people want a computer from me at the moment. And I tend to say that about every case, but you know, it's the best one that I've found until I find the next one. So yeah, there are some cases where I build in them and I think, yeah, we probably won't buy one of these again. Then there's cases like this one where I just want to build more of them and I want to see it in all different colors, and it's just amazing. So yeah, thanks for watching everyone. I'll see you all next time.